Are we sitting comfortably? Are the lights turned down low, and the shadows lengthening in the room? Are the curtains closed, and are the doors locked? Good. Then let us begin.
The Theatre Royal in Addington Street, Margate, was built in 1794. The building has been used for a number of purposes. It changed from a theatre to a furniture store in the early 1900s, but was reopened again as a theatre in 1930. However, in the mid-1930s it was converted into a cinema, and later even used as a bingo hall, before once again opening as a theatre. Sarah Thorne, 1836 to 1899, was responsible for creating the best company at the theatre when she became an actress manager in 1867. The ghost of a woman, widely believed to be Thorne, has been seen walking from one end to the other of the upper stalls. Her apparition is said to have been seen on many occasions in the early years of the 20th century. She was seen in 1918, wearing her crinoline and bonnet, at the time when the building was being used to store furniture. Another alleged ghost, that of an actor who committed suicide, is held responsible for creating strange lights that float around. One of these, a ball of light, is sometimes seen near the top box in the gallery. It is said that an unnamed actor from the early 19th century, who, having been dismissed from the theatrical company, went to the box office, bought himself a box for the night's performance, and during the course of the play committed suicide by jumping from the box onto the floor of the theatre just in front of the stage. During the early 20th century, the apparition of the man was so frequently seen, sitting motionless in the box, that the management eventually decided to brick up the box. Footsteps, a female voice, thumps, and doors banging loudly have all been heard, and odd energy surges, cold spots, lights going on and off, and watches and clocks stopping have all been experienced in the theatre. Scenery props would be found to have been moved, and lights in the toilet were frequently found to be switched on, despite having been switched off after the performance. Two of the staff stated that, when alone in the building at night, they heard shuffling, thuds, and wheezes of someone unseen. This was followed by lights going off and on, and an icy blast was felt. In 1964, two chorus girls fainted during a late-night rehearsal after they saw a ghostly figure on the stage. In January 1966, Alfred Tanner, a painter who had just moved to Margate, agreed to repaint the interior of the theatre, working at night in order that his work would not interfere with the bingo sessions during the day. On the first night he worked from 11:30 until 3:30 a.m, and nothing unusual happened. The following night he arrived at the theatre to find it in darkness, and before he could switch on the lights he heard whispering from the stage. When the lights were turned on, he could find no trace of anybody in the building. As he started painting one of the doors near the orchestra pit, he felt that he was being watched. Then he heard the creaking of floorboards, as though someone was walking across the stage towards him. When he turned to see who was there, they abruptly stopped, and he could see nobody there. A short while later, he heard the door to the box office bang violently. Hoping it was a natural occurrence, he carried on with his painting. Then came the sound of a heavy thump on the floor between the stage and the first row of seats, as though a heavy object had fallen from a great height. He looked at the spot and saw dust rising from the carpet, as though a real object had just hit it, but there was nothing on the floor. That was enough for him, and he went home for the remainder of the night. The next night he started work at the usual time, checking that the theatre was secure and no intruder could get in. The auditorium was fully lit, but he left the stage lights off. While he was painting one of the doors, he glanced at the stage and saw, moving from left to right, a semi-transparent object, about 10 inches in diameter, and about 5 feet from the floor. There were 2 dark patches in the light, just as if they had been eyes in a face. This apparition travelled halfway across the stage and then disappeared. He also watched the curtains by the exit door being moved by an unseen hand. By the following night, a volunteer, Lawrence Rogers, had been found to stay with the painter while he carried on with his work. During the night, they heard whisperings from the stage, but Rogers, of a sceptical mind, put the sounds down to the wind. However, later when they heard the sound of a terrific bang in the front row of the dress circle, it was the skeptic who dashed from the theatre and returned a short while later with several police officers. The building was then searched, but no intruders were found. After that, Alfred Tanner refused to continue working at night in the theatre. In 1966, the theatre received wide publicity in the national press, and on BBC One and BBC Two, Alan Wicker broadcast from the theatre following reports in the press that the haunting had intensified. In September 1972, Andrew Green spoke with Mr. Jacobs, the then manager of the theatre, who, while admitting that he had never experienced anything unusual himself, he accepted that the incidents reported by his staff were perfectly genuine. Only 2 weeks previously, yet another painter had suffered from similar experiences to Alfred Tanner. He had lost his balance on top of a ladder after hearing a loud crash coming from the front of the stalls, and was covered in paint as a result. He ran out of the building shaking with fear. In March 1997, international clairvoyant Peter Walker was due to appear at the theatre, and a few weeks before paid it a visit, accompanied by theatre development director Michael Wheatley Ward. Mr. Walker explained that there were several spirits in the theatre. One of these was the ghost of the first owner, Thomas Robson, and while in the Upper Circle bar there seemed to be a strong link with the name of Cobb. He even claimed to have met up with Charles Dickens while in the theatre's haunted box, and that Dickens had pushed past him. Dickens, he said, was in his late 40s and was not happy. He was sitting with another man in the box and had his eyes fixed on the performance, with a great sadness about him. For a while in the early 1980s, I lived in a flat in Addington Street, Margate, just down the road from the Theatre Royal, which at the time was closed. On one day, heading towards Cliftonville, I saw that renovations were in progress, with the door open and workmen going in and out. Ever on the lookout for an opportunity to explore a place generally off limits, I approached 2 of the chaps outside having a smoke and asked if I could have a quick look around. I was surprised when they agreed, and before they could change their mind I walked straight in and had half an hour looking around before thanking the chaps and walking out again, with a few comments about what a superb building it was. Overall, there was a general unease about the place, and while there I made contact with a tall man in a top hat and a long coat of the Victorian period in the stalls area, a serious chap who gave his name as Edward. On the stage, I heard footsteps walking behind me, and when I stopped, I was enveloped in coldness that chilled to the bone, and then it was gone. I was really hoping to make contact with Sarah Thorne herself, but alas no, it wasn't to be.